Hello and welcome. With the release of our brand new updated Virtual Boy tripod adapters, I kind of want to take this as an opportunity to go back to my original prototype, both the original Virtual Boy tripod adapter that I made many years ago, as well as my original V2 Virtual Boy tripod adapter, to see just how well they held up after all these years. This, I think, is going to be the more interesting one, since this has been together since the original photos and whatnot that I've taken of it, and I do kind of want to see how it compares with my updated revision. But first I want to go over with the original V1 tripod. One of the bigger differences that you'll see from my prototype versus the actual one is the fact that the actual one has the Virtual Studios logo on the bottom, and this does not. The other one you're going to notice is that it still has the Virtual Boy mounting holes. I find these to be quite useful on an actual Virtual Boy, since it helps hold it in place while you're taking it on and off the stand, but at the same time, once it's clamped down, doesn't really make much of a difference. So removing these was not an issue if it means that we can just make everything compatible with the new system and the original. Taking it apart, you can see that there's a fair bit of play in here now that it's been used for quite some time and under tension. But overall, while it is a little loose and a little stretched, it still holds up very, very well. I'm actually quite pleased with this. I'm a bit afraid to take this apart because this part right here is a wear component, and I'd rather not completely wear it down if I don't have to. As for the rest of the unit, I just need to get the appropriate drill screw bit for this. Unfortunately, the screw on the back is extremely worn. Is either the screw or the screw hole, can't tell which one specifically. It looks like the internal hole here is worn down considerably. It still holds it in place and it ain't going to come out, but it's not as smooth, or it's not as held down as I want it to be. If I wanted to extend the life, I'd either replace the screw outright with a metal one or with a longer screw, and I feel I probably should do that, but in this case it still holds up very well. I'm going to take the bottom apart now. These screws held up a little bit better. I wonder if that's just because of the print orientation of the bottom component, and of course the metal washer has held up very nicely. But compared to a modern unit, this one is really similar. I hadn't had much time between the release of the V2 and the Switch for there to be much in terms of alterations, but it's held up quite well, even with the bit of a print defect that we had on the bottom. This was present in the photos that I took of it. I just hid it as well as I could, because one of the biggest changes we made with the V2 unit is simply the fact that the V2 is partially assembled, more so than the original Virtual Boy, because it needs to be partially assembled or else it doesn't hold very well. But this is the bit I'm talking about. Like, I'm trying to tighten it and then just let's go. A bit of a fault with the screws, but considering that you shouldn't really be disassembling this thing for any reason after it's put together, I'm okay with that. And if you need to, you can easily replace this with a 1032 screw and it functions perfectly. In fact, it holds better than the plastic one, but it will wear the part out, which is why I don't like to use metal screws when we have the 3D printed component. Next, we have a look back at the original tripod adapter. Unlike the V2, we were still using PLA as our main plastic, and we are paying dearly for it. You can see cracks forming at around our thin joints where pressure was put on. This component was used extensively for testing and on and off and on and off, and it holds well, pretty well relatively speaking, but the color has 100% faded over the years. though we will be able to see if that's due to sunlight when we actually take it apart. But for the thicker components, I have a rule of thumb. 2mm thinness is required on most places, and this is kind of the reason why, because if you look on the sides, they are still holding up quite well. I think this is just a little too thin on the up and down. The reason this is a little bolder in color is it was printed yesterday, and it's also made out of PETG. The other thing I'm going to note is that if you look at the design properly, you'll see that it's a little more curved. This is also because this here is not a one-to-one replica. Well, I did my best to make this as close as I can. This model here was originally designed in Fusion 360, whereas this is made in FreeCAD. I took the designs and dimensions and ported it over as much as I could. The problem with that design choice was that the Virtual Boy proper is, well, a little different. You can tell from the back because the B cut into the back part when I placed down the paste down the text, whereas this, the text was able to put on the actual component itself. Taking this down though, one of the first things you're going to notice with the age of this thing is the elastic is functioning, but well worn. This is why we always shipped 2 of them, because even, you know, decades in a bag, untensioned untensioned elastic is still going to hold up well. And this still functions if you give it a bit of, you know, play, let it relax, let it recover. I'm pretty sure if you apply a bit of heat to this, it'll probably also bounce right back. But you can see inside the groove, there's a bit of cracking on the elastic, so a replacement is probably in order if I actually wanted to use this. This is one of the bigger reasons why when we move to the V2 unit, it's no elastic and it's all mechanical for how it functions. Alright, let's go take apart the biggest problem child. Alrighty. And with that out, you can see another issue that I have. You over torque it, this part comes out. I think when I designed it in the V2, I reinforced that a little more, but yeah. A lot of bad design choices were made when I was making this guy, so surprised this unit specifically has held together so well. This part has held well. You can see that probably, you know what? My guess is the reason this went up is because this all put pressure there. Oh, it's hysterical. There we go. So take the bottom apart. The one benefit for the screws is that these actually, the reason why the cavities is so deep is because I had a different screw type at some point, and it had I think it's not a pan head, it's a bulb, I forget the type of head type, but it wasn't flat. So the extra depth was needed to go and hide that. Actually, you can see how, unlike this part where it bowed out because of the screw, this did not. So I added a little more margin on other components, and on the bottom, this held up extremely well. The elastic, actually you can see it's kind of recovering in parts, but the elastic is holding up as well as it needs. The only parts I actually need is this part right here and this curve right here. The rest is just aesthetic or just a place to put the excess. Otherwise, this has held up remarkably well for a 3D printed component. Oh yeah, oh shoot, you can kind of see it too. This part right here also starting to bow out. You can see the stress cracks forming about here. And it's just being pulled out, and I think it's because I'm over tightening it. Another benefit of using plastic screws, the screw will destroy itself rather than the unit, and the screws are pennies, and I will be more than happy to ship replacements if you can show me that they were destroyed, because I can put it in an envelope with a piece of paper and call a letter. Thank you, US Postal System. So let's put this back together. Oh, come on. I know you're old and you haven't been used, but you're not that old. And be cautious not to over tighten. Though I think at this point it's already too late. And when we're back, we are down. There we go. So that is the original Virtual Boy. I want to retire this guy. He's going to be kept on my shelf as a decoration. I think if I want to keep an original one laying around, it's going to be one of these guys. But honestly, I love the V2 designs just so much better than the V1s, just because this is what I wanted the tripod to be in the first place. Just a mechanical pull. I didn't want the elastic. That was kind of a workaround. I love the intricacies of the unit when you actually look at the details, and I do kind of miss these, but at the same time, I love the V2s. I'm probably going to use these guys. As for these guys, they exist. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video, and if you want to buy one of these yourself, you can either make it. I do have the files available on my Printables and Thingiverse profile, or you can buy it directly from us at 16bitstore.com. Take care.